All right. And here we are. You got your 6-8-1 Dallas Cowboys who lost to the 11-4 Los Angeles Chargers now. And give me 1 second here. And sorry for that. This is our first time going live on our StreamYard here. So appreciate y'all being here. If you haven't already, go like and subscribe. And, we'll get straight into this. As Dallas Cowboys fans are calling for, this is probably the time of the year where you start doing some inner squad evaluations, starting to look at, what guys you want, what guys you don't want next year, who is needing to be here and who's not needing to be here. Mike, this game didn't mean nothing today. Obviously, it didn't really have a significant purpose when it comes to what this season can provide. But this is really the time of year, like I just said, is for squad evaluations. Is that where you're kind of at with all this?
Yeah, absolutely. And the game just reflected the entire season. I can elaborate on that if you want, but that's kind of what the last three games were. Yeah. So at this point, you just got to look at next year what players on the team should be around and are going to be a good fit for the roster going into next year, and to determine that, so we know where we need to be on staffing. We got free agency starting March 12th, and then of course the draft. So starting evaluation now is key, and that starts obviously with the coaching.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was going to turn off my fan. I'm pretty sure that it will create a lot of background noise for our viewers. So I took myself off there for a second and went to go turn that off. But yeah, I'll kind of let you elaborate first. Let's talk about this game, and then we can kind of start talking about, one, for our channel, what we want to do for this offseason program that we're going to go into. And then two, we can go into kind of what kind of evaluations you and I each will be studying and providing for our viewers and our fans.
Yeah. So we went into this game with the change of Wycott and calling changes and coordination from the sideline, and then of course Matt Eberflus being up in the booth to get perspective. And
yeah, more like a soft firing here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if that added anything positive to the outcome of the game. Obviously, winning is the key, but it's not such a big deal that we lost it. I kind of expected that we would. I didn't see anything that reflected any change or any improvement with that going into this game, and him being up in the booth. I really watched the defensive line, the front seven, the linebackers in this game, and Justin Herbert is the most sacked quarterback in the league this year.
Yeah.
And we could not get a single sack. Kenny Clark, you thought sacked him, but he actually passed the line of scrimmage, so it was a tackle for 1 yard and not a sack. So that didn't even count.
Yep.
Very minimal pressure, as there's been all year. It just seems that every offensive line can take whatever rush we throw at them. Even with Osa and Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams, we have no definitive pass rusher that can make a difference. But here's my overall opinion on this. This is what happens when you just throw a bunch of shit together and expect it to work out. Yeah. And out of all this, I really hope that Jerry Jones learned a lesson this year, that, you trade away a huge player, regardless of the outcome, and you think that you're going to be able to just put people in a position and they're just going to do what they're supposed to do without good coaching, without continuity, without practice, without time together. It takes weeks. You look at the teams that are going into the playoffs right now, their defenses look like a unit.
Yeah.
They look like they know what they're supposed to be doing, and they know how to do it. They know what their weaknesses are, but they pursue their strengths so well that the weaknesses you do expose are very, very brief, and for us, it doesn't look like that. It just looks like we're terrible at every facet of the game. And occasionally we have, players who have a lot of skill on our defense that will make some plays and do some things. But it's a reflection of what our whole season has been. Great offense gets killed with a single penalty. You look at that play with Turpin, he's running around the end. All he's got to do is make one guy miss, and he can run that all the way to the house. Oh, what happens? He trips and falls. That's pretty much been our whole season. It's just execution has been poor, both offensively and defensively. And that's because we went into this season hodgepodging a bunch of stuff together. You cannot take a rookie head coach, change up his team, and he was the last minute, chosen at the very last minute, make big changes to the personnel, hire a guy who has just been released from his former position for failure, and throw this thing together, and then halfway through the season panic, order a bunch of guys off the a la carte menu, and then try to push this thing across the finish line with just hopes and dreams. So that's the outcome of this, and that's where we at. And I'm actually glad it happened. I think the team will be better for it next year, but they 100% have to start improving on what we were weakest at right now. Not in February after the Super Bowl. It needs to start right now. Evaluations from the top down has to start happening immediately.
Yeah, I totally agree. It goes from all the way from Jerry Jones down to the players on the field. We have to evaluate every aspect of it. You really need to decide whether, the staff around Brian Schottenheimer, the guy you believe in to be your head coach, is worth keeping around. Obviously, I think that the offensive staff has proven to be worth keeping around on top of everything else. I think the defensive staff is where your biggest challenge is going to be this offseason when you're talking from a staff perspective, and even on a personnel perspective. When you're looking at this team overall, do we have questions on the offense? Sure, but it's really more on those tackle positions. It's like, how do you construct this offensive line to be more consistent throughout the year instead of, or even on a depth perspective, if we do have Guy go down, or if we do have Steele go down, or how do we manage that to not hurt us in those games that we needed it? And then when you're talking on the defensive side, it's like you said, how do we get a little bit more pass rush? I know that Micah Parsons is not on his team anymore, but you can't ignore the issue. You've got your interior pressure. You're finding ways to stop the run. You're getting better. Don't get me wrong. This defense is, well, it's a little better. From a talent perspective, we got talent, I believe, there, but how do we find a way to maybe get a guy who knows how to actually build a scheme to fit the players and not necessarily make the players fit the scheme? And I think that's where we're getting things backwards here, is we're truly getting we have a defensive coordinator that's trying to force his scheme to work. And even with him moving up to the booth, or with him, saying we're making things one word terminology, it's not working. Eberflus should have been skilled enough and should have been smart enough to be able to put together a game plan that could have helped basically everyone else, or being able to help the players on the field. And then instead, after, were we on week 15 here, week 16? It has not improved at all. So if Jerry Jones keeps Matt Eberflus after everything we've gone through, I think you're set up for disappointment the next year. You still got 2 more games to show something, but even with the 3-game winning stretch where we were like, oh, we may have a chance to do this, we may have a chance to do that this upcoming playoffs, the scheme defensively still was not there. Like, you were still giving teams, 30 plus points. Like, yes, we won, but that's because of our offense, and our defense was able to step up a couple times. But look at Minnesota game. You got a pick and we scored to start the game, and you still, you couldn't stop nobody. Same thing with Justin Herbert today. Our offense comes out hot. They put up 17 points in the first half, and then they go scoreless in the second half, but you weren't able to stop anybody. So you're in the spot where you need to make changes defensively. Offensively, you need to retool and just fine tune it, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, absolutely. And Eberflus was hired because look. I get that Dallas is the most corporate franchise in all of sports for sure, top three, right? So it's like they have they have to pick their coaches who are going to be representative of the team and have a certain candor and character and all that rickety-racka. And I'm sure, you know, Eberflus is a good person. He's got a family, trying to do his job, but that's the that's the career path that he chose. Is that you're under pressure to deliver a result every week for the entire NFL year, and unfortunately, sometimes when it doesn't work out and you don't see any improvement, you can be a casualty of that. And they hired him knowing, that who he was as a person, and that's great. They're hiring on what they know about people, and I don't know if that's the wisest way to go about this. They probably also kept in the back of their mind that they were bringing on a first time head coach, also to the most recognizable sports franchise of all time, so that probably played a little bit into the back of their mind that they had that safety valve just in case Schottenheimer got overwhelmed or he got in trouble or he's having difficulties. He had someone who was experienced to lean into a little bit on that. But that cannot be the mentality you have. You have to hire guys on what they can do and what they've done and the ambitions and the drive and their ability to influence and motivate. And you have to have a plan and a picture to hire somebody for that. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I think that's what they were missing. I think they just hired this guy because they knew him and he was experienced and safe.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And just real quick, I'm going to throw us off track here for a second. But as we're playing around with this new live streaming stuff, I want to apologize because the selection I made, they're calling it a multi-stream view thing where one goes, I'm assuming here on the YouTube Shorts, and then one is on our YouTube page, but it's creating two different live videos. So if you're noticing, there's one that's vertical and there's one that's portrait. I'm sorry to throw us off track here, but I apologize to our fans for the ones that it's in portrait mode, maybe on their shorts and stuff. It had this like super zoomed in, so I'm having to zoom it out just for their view right now, and then I'll have to go back and fix that later. Now, back to what you're here for, Dallas Cowboys content. Yeah, and here's one of the things that I'm looking at Twitter here and I'm digging through all the post press conference notes and everything. John Machota, give credit to him here. He says, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, I'll admit that the Cowboys management has played a big role in the 30-year Super Bowl drought. But seriously, I'm very disappointed that the way we're structured and the role put us here tonight, and my role put us here tonight, I'm tremendously disappointed. It's all fun and games. I feel like every year, and maybe you disagree, but every year we end up in this situation with Jerry Jones. It's always like, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, or, like I could have done this, I could have done that, but for me, it's like, okay, now you say this, it's good to admit, right? The first thing to do is admit, but how do we move forward or how do we fix it? What's step one here? Are you actually going to make the moves? Are you actually going to contribute to a roster that could be, like you said, a Super Bowl team roster here in the next couple of years, a machine that you can gel together to get it going? Because we have to find a coach on the defensive side. We have to find somebody who's going to be here for 2 or 3 years. We can't just keep hiring, because you're hurting it's a lot on a player. I'm like, imagine going to work every day and they're going to change everything you're doing. You studied this whole work concept for a year, and all of a sudden they're like, nope, scratch that. This is your new job, and you got to learn all this for a year. And as soon as you get good at it, boom, we're taking it away. Here's another one. That's what the Cowboys have gone through the past 3 years. It was Dan Quinn, Mike Zimmer, now Matt Eberflus. And if Cowboys fans are going to get what they want, it's going to end up being a fourth defensive coordinator who's going to have to reteach everything. And it may be internal or it may be external. Whatever way it happens, it's going to be a new learning curve for these guys. And if you hire a defensive coordinator who's young and hungry, you're going to have learning curves with him that are probably going to take a couple years. How does he manage the game? How does he call the plays? Or how does he call a script? Like, yes, they're experienced coaches, obviously, but if they were a positional who's never been a defensive coordinator, been in charge of calling the plays, it's a different ball game. It's the question we had with Schottenheimer when he first got hired, and he's like, I'm going to be the offensive play caller. Okay, you were the OC, and then before that, you were an analyst for basically the Cowboys with Mike McCarthy's staff. How are you going to call plays? How are you going to handle the pressure? What are you going to do when you're on the goal line, 4th and goal 1? You got to have it here. And he's proven to show us that he can do it. Sorry, I'm going on a rant here, but that's where I'm at when you're talking about this defensive staff is we have to get it solved, because what made Dallas really good during the Mike McCarthy era, it was, yes, you hit gold with Dan Quinn, being able to come in and really put a defense together and have a good scheme during the regular season. But he was there for 2 to 3 years. So he had the defense players had consistency. The guys like you've talked about before, the guys they were drafting, Eberflus did not really pick it. I mean, I hate to say it, like you said, it's his fault, but it's not his fault because this isn't like his guys. This isn't a defense he's put together, in 3 to 4 years. And he's been able to be like, well, I want this guy in the draft. And I want this guy in the draft. And I want this guy in free agency. And then this guy in free agency. This is unfortunately a team that he had to inherit. But at the same time, if you were schematically good, we would see some light out of this defense. And we're not seeing no light at all. There's no hope, at least from my point of view as a Cowboys fan and what I'm looking for to try to move forward. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, it just looks like there was no plan going into the season beyond hiring Schottenheimer.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's all evident of it. Micah Parsons, that was not planned. They made it work. It became convenient because of what we were able to do from it. But that wasn't a decision. So let me backtrack. They talked about it. Jerry Jones came out and said, yeah, we talked about trading him earlier, before training camp and rickety rackety. Yeah, it wasn't a serious conversation. That decision was made the night Micah laid on the table.
Yeah.
That's when it was decided they were going to trade Micah. Yeah, you messed with the boss. You embarrassed the boss on TV like that, and that's what happened. That's the honest truth. That's my opinion. I think that's right. Eberflus, the same thing. He was hired because, one, there wasn't a whole lot of people available, and they needed safety and security to help Shoddy after, letting all the possible candidates take other positions and declining interviewing them. They grabbed Matt Eberflus just in case they needed a relief, and that's where we're at. And then when you realized, while none of this worked out very well, you hit the panic button, you dump some picks, you make some trades, you grab some guys. I looked this up earlier before this live stream. Yep. Do you know how many games this season we played the same 11 defensive players 2 weeks in a row?
Maybe 2 or 3 times?
Yeah, twice.
Okay.
It was a different personnel almost every week of the year. We have no continuity. It takes time for these guys to get acclimated to what they're supposed to be doing and knowing what their teammates can do around them. It's a lot easier to play with confidence than it is to, just know your assignment and assume you're going to be able to execute it. It's just crazy. This is one of the weirdest NFL seasons I have ever seen for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. To have such a high level offensive roster with what I have grown to believe is a pretty good offensive coordinator in Schottenheimer, even as the head coach. I feel like he's done a really good job. He's decent situational so far. He's going to get more experience and he'll get better. He'll rein in some of the crazy calls he likes to make when he gets, a little fired up. But, it would really help to have a sound defense so that you don't feel the pressure to be offensively excellent every time you have a possession. And that's where we are this year.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to say, back didn't do this, and we only scored 17 points, and those things are going to happen. That's the NFL.
Yeah.
But if you have to literally go out and score 35, 40 points to win a game because your defense is just a strainer, then that's never going to work. So obviously the defense is the biggest issue here, and that's what's got to be addressed first.
Yeah. No, I'm totally on board. I mean, all around. I mean, we can beat this dead horse all day. I mean, it feels like something that we've been talking about from week 1 to now. I mean, you've had this roller coaster on the defensive side, and even with the additions of Logan Wilson, Quentin Williams, guys who have brought an impact, which it mind blows. Like I'm blown by it, but why did we trade for Logan Wilson and we're not at least going to see the potential he has? I mean, are they trying to, take the load off him because we're not in potential contention anymore? Do you feel like there's something in practice that's not going right? Or can we talk about why is it Kenneth Murray getting all these snaps? Why is Kenneth Murray they trying to make it work with him? Are they just trying to get one last depth evaluation out of him? I mean, what is going on with this Logan Wilson, Kenneth Murray situation?
I can't figure it out. I don't know if it's just, they're just trying to play a guy because, you don't want to break continuity. You don't want to take away his position, even if he's not, or is it Logan Wilson's not performing well enough? I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah.
But at this point, there's only like 5 or 6 players on the defense that I can honestly say have done well enough this season. Watching tonight's game, the defensive line was terrible. The linebackers were mediocre. The secondary was atrocious. I mean, it was just nothing worked well. And it's like, how can we not do anything well? Quentin Williams came in and it made a significant impact on the defensive line. We were able to have more success stopping the run, not completely, but more than we had previously. So what did teams do? They just said, okay, fine. We'll just focus on the flats and the quarters.
Yeah.
And they just beat us up in those ways. We'll toss it out to the flat. We'll block, we'll run some guys down the field, and we'll see if he can tackle us. And when you do that over and over and over again, you're going to get 5, 6, 7 yards every time because we don't have the ability to run anybody down or to stop anything around the edge like that. And that's a big, big problem. Those are things that have got to be addressed the most. But you have to know what you want your defense to do before you can start picking the players to do it. You can't pick the players and decide, we're going to force this defense on the group, even though their skills don't allow them to do that. I haven't seen enough of Logan Wilson to know what he's good at yet.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You trade the 7th-round pick for him. Why are you not fit? This is the perfect time to do it. Now, it could change. They could have said, Kenneth Murray, this is your last game, and then it could be Logan Wilson the next game, and then they're like, Shamir James, you get the final one. But these are the games to do it. We're not evaluating properly if we're not playing everybody the same. So...
And then we drafted linebackers. We drafted Louis Fallon. We drafted Shamar James.
And Louis Fallon's been around for 2-3 years.
Yeah, and it's like, why are we going and getting veterans that are cut from other teams to come over here and be our starters when we're drafting these guys?
It would be different. It would be different if it was like a Bobby Wagner or if it was like a, super veteran, like someone who's been an all pro, but we're getting guys that are like the Chargers today did not want Kenneth Murray. There's a reason why they let him go. And we're like Sanborn, same way. Right. So sorry, I didn't disrupt you, but there you go.
You're perfectly fine. I totally get it. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, we have guys that we pick that we don't even get to see play. And I don't know I don't know whose decision that is, which is confusing. We as fans, we don't have that insight. We don't know if Matt Eberflus is just like, no, this is what I want these guys to do. These are the guys I want doing it. Is that just because those are the guys he picked and he can't abandon them, or it makes him look like, he's admitting error, or is it just the fact that they really do believe that, you know, Kenneth Murray is the best linebacker for that spot?
Yeah.
And either way, that's a double edged sword. You know, that's bad. No matter what, it's bad because he's bad.
Yeah. So,
And then we have the Trayvon Diggs fiasco. I don't know how you felt about that, but I really hoped that he would come out and show some flashes. I mean, I think he played as hard as he could. He made some tackles. He was getting physical. He did take a couple of beats, but at the same time, the guy hasn't played. So you can't just because you're good at football and you're talented and you're in the NFL doesn't mean you can just jog out onto the field at any given time and just take big moment after big moment and have success. It does not work like that. You have
yeah.
to practice, you have to prepare, you have to scheme, you have to watch film, you have to study, you have to walk through it, and most importantly, you have to get used to game football again. And he hasn't done that. I hope they leave him out there and let him finish out the season so we can get a good evaluation of what we have in him and if he can still be what he was, because we need it. Looking at the secondary, man, we need all the experience and talent we can get. And I'd rather keep what I know if it's decent and good than go grab another handful of cut guys and try to piece something together. But the most important thing is Eberflus needs to be removed tomorrow.
Oh, so you don't even want to see him finish the year. You like
No,
cut
we
it,
need
get out.
we need to assess everything we have right now.
Yeah.
So cut him, promote the next guy, promote the guys under them, let them finish it out for the year, see what they can offer, see what they can cook up, let them take control of the defense, and see what charge or spark they have. And then you know what you have, not only as your coaching staff, but as your actual team roster, what you have out there on the field. And as soon as the season's over, you can start looking to add coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you on the Trayvon Diggs aspect to talk about that a little bit. I love Trayvon Diggs. I own like 2-3 jerseys of Trayvon Diggs. Like that's my boy. I love him. Been watching him since 2021. It's been a really, really good ride with him. One of the things I will say though is I do think it takes time to get adjusted and get back on the field, and it's really unfortunate that with even what was going on, if the Dallas Cowboys decided to bench him because of personal issues, or maybe it was the knee's not ready. I truly believe that he should have gotten the opportunity to maybe get on the field a couple weeks ago when games maybe mattered, or maybe there was a motivation to get on the field and try to play. So it's just one of those things where I'm disappointed maybe from the organization aspect of not getting Trayvon on the field. I know, guys, to our viewers out there, I know that he hasn't been what he has been since 2021. He's not the all-pro. He's not the guy who's going out there and getting the, 8 interceptions and doing all that. But I still think that there is really good playmaking ability that he can add to this team. And I don't know if removing him at this moment is the best thing. Maybe after one more year, you give it one more year. And let's say that he doesn't perform, he doesn't stay on the field, then I'm good with it. Because then Ravel by then should be good. Josh Butler by then should be good. Then you're going to have Kalen Carson that should be good by then. And then maybe you have a couple more guys that you decide to add on with Bland. But I don't know if getting rid of him is the best spot to start it. Now, it could
Instead
be
of going up and picking up another Elam or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, just keep Trayvon out there. He adds he knows the team. He adds talent. He has some leadership, and he can help the other guys. And that's a better idea than cutting him, just going and trading him for some other unknown quantity and taking a risk. Especially when he's under contract. There's no reason to do that. He hasn't shown me enough yet to say he's got to go. Because I really believe that you got to have time on the field and you got to have time in the game to get reacclimated to it. You can't just come off. I mean, he didn't even play before he had the concussion. He barely played.
Yeah.
So he's almost been out this whole year, and now he's going to get thrown in versus one of the more elite receiving teams, with the Chargers out there, and it was tough to match up on them with rookies running around on the field. Trequise is a rookie. Revel is a rookie. Deron Bland's not there. Stewart's only been here. This is his second year in the league. So that's what we have next year. Kalen Carson, multiple years in the league, but hasn't played very much either. Essentially still in his rookie level of maturity.
Yeah.
I think they're all talented. They're very capable, but there's a lot to learn about this game. There's little nuances that they have to pick up on, and you can't do that without experiencing it. Practice playing against the practice squad wide receivers is not going to allow that to happen. You have to be in the game for real, for real.
Yeah. So let's talk about guys like, are you interested in, I mean, I know this is going to be a little early for these kind of definitive answers, but, are you looking to bring guys maybe like Dante Fowler next year, Javion Clowney, maybe Peyton Turner? Let's see who else is on this list of 1-year contracts. Jack Sanborns of the world, Payne. Yeah, I already said Payne Turner. I mean, are we looking these 1-year guys? I mean, who are we really looking to bring back? I mean, I know you're a big Javion Clowney guy, so I definitely think that he's good to bring back if we need somebody after the free agency. But I definitely think we should pursue other guys if possible.
Yeah, and here's my logic with this. You look at a guy like Dante Fowler, who is coming off a 10.5 sack season last year. There's a reason why that momentum stopped, right? So you're like, okay, why did he have very little success this year? And it's one of two things. One, there was a significant drop off in what he was capable of doing, and somehow our scouting and evaluating and player personnel staff did not catch it, and we picked him up anyway, which doesn't seem very logical. Or whatever he's being told is his role on this team due to the scheme is hindering his ability to do that. Because you would think anybody who has success of that level as a pass rusher on a defensive line with Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, and Osa Odigizua is going to be able to find opportunities, right? So which one of those two things can it be? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I really don't. I think it's very possibly a combination of both. If you have a guy who has 10.5 sacks, why would you let him go? But at the same time, that happens all over the league every year. So is it just a missed evaluation? Is he missed a step? Is he lost some strength? I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on that one. But here's what I do know. I can't really answer to who should or should not go at this point until I know what the plan is for the defense moving forward.
Yeah.
Right? Until I know, okay, this is the kind of defense we're going to run, and this is the kind of coach that we're going to put in that position to run it. And then I can start evaluating what kind of players need to be on the team in order to execute it. If you were to force my hand right now, there's nobody on the team on the defensive line outside of Jadeveon Clowney that showed me any reason to keep them.
Yeah.
Just keeping it 100.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, you got to go back.
He made more plays than any of our own guys that were on the team before him.
Yeah, I think you got to go back down and break down the film, look at the stats, look at the critical plays they made and when they made them, not just, oh, well, this guy had like 8 tackles for loss in this one game. Were they in critical situations? Was it just when the team gave up? Were we already blowing them out by 20? Things like that. I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason for you and I to go through, dig into really those fine details. Personally, as a fan, I've never done it. I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to be able to bring that kind of content to y'all. And hopefully you and I can have some really good conversations about what is the step going forward defensively. And then offensively, we can kind of challenge each other on figuring out, who is the RB2, who is the offensive line we need to bring back. who is, the wide receivers we need to bring back. The biggest question that everyone's going to ask who isn't looking into the deeper details like you and I are is, do you bring George Pickens back? Are you franchise tagging him? Are you signing him to a multi-year deal to push the money around? What is the answer at the wide receiver 2? Do you think Ryan Flournoy has done enough to solidify himself at wide receiver 2, and you're going to let George Pickens walk or potentially franchise tag him and then trade him? What is the answer for these situations? And I think we got a lot to go through. And just for fun here, let's see here. Let's see if I can pull it up. Let's see if I don't know if you can see this. Let's see how this turns out here. Can you see this? You see this?
Yeah.
There you go.
That must be very, very recent.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep, that is our defense coordinator. Shout out to the Cowboys Network. They provide this awesome clip for us as the Dallas Cowboys Twitter posted the final score. So that is your defense coordinator currently.
Yeah, it's Leaky the Clown.
Oh man, so
yeah, man, we got to get some oil for that guy, man. He's running a few quarters low. It's leaking everywhere. There's leaks all up and down the road, down the block, in the parking lot,
man,
on the sidewalk, driveway.
It's sad. It's sad because when you and I watch the game together, we always have it. We got look for our viewers. Look, we love football, and so this year we decided to invest into a really nice TV. We bought a nice one, real big. How big is it? What, 70-inch?
Yeah, it's like 75 inch.
So we put the Cowboys game on it. We got the surround sound. We got big old TV for the Cowboys game. We want to put them on the biggest screen we can to watch them. And today was the first time this year we were like, let's add the Carolina game.
Yeah.
Let's add another game, and then let's add Red Zone on there. And we're watching 4 games while the Cowboys game's going on in the bottom left corner. And next thing I know, the game's like over. Like I'm watching all these other games for situations that teams are actually competing and fighting for matter. And it's just sad because you wait all year. You go through desperate times. I remember in our first episode, the first thing I mentioned is I was watching John Cena's retirement tour to keep me entertained. And so it's such disappointment that after 16 weeks, this is where we're at, man. I was really looking forward to more. I thought that we could bring more to the table, even showing with the defensive struggles early. I thought maybe we could finally get to click because we all gave optimism and hope that things would click, with the new staff and all that. But it just hasn't get going. And today was not a day that showed you any excitement or improvement at all.
Yeah, so before we get into kind of what some of the things we're going to do as the season's winding to a close, I have a question for you just to kind of tease a little bit of what we're going to be talking about during the draft, right? That's going to be coming up. I think it's April 23rd, 25th this year. March 12th, I think, is the free agency. But we'll do some player evaluations, getting down to the end here, and we'll go position by position, good and bad about it, and just start kind of getting an idea of what we have and what we need. But this is a question I thought was interesting. I heard this on another podcast, and I really liked it. But so here's what we got. Right now, Dallas is sitting at 13th with their pick. Their first round pick. And I think Green Bay's 20 something, right? So we have the 2 first round picks. We have no round 2 or round 3 pick.
Yep.
We have 1 4th round pick, 3 5th round picks, no 6th round picks, and multiple conditional 7th round picks that Jerry will spend on players who are injured. And, it's true.
I know. I'm laughing because I know it's true.
Yeah. So, would you... Okay, let me throw it to you like this. How would you want to utilize those picks as they currently are?
Without digging too much into college prospects and all that, personally, when I'm looking at it, I'm looking to evaluate. I want safeties.
If you could have any player guaranteed, what player would you want?
Gosh, I don't even know that on top of my head. Ugh, man.
All right, then just
Yeah,
go back.
sorry.
Go back to what you were originally thinking.
Yeah, sorry, you got me there. Without digging into it, I haven't dug too deep yet, but I'm looking at safeties. I want to really dig into safeties in that secondary, and then when you get into the later rounds, I really want to dig into how do we get some maybe offensive depth, offensive line depth. Looking at tackles, guards, and stuff like that.
Okay, so let me pose it to you in a different way. If you could take that 13th pick and that 23rd pick and get a top 3 pick to get the guy you really know will impact your team, or would you take a good guy that'll help your team with the 13th pick and then a good player with your 23rd pick? Or would you take that 23rd pick and trade it for some day 2, day 3 picks to fill more? Because here's what I'm thinking, man. We're gonna blow some holes in this defense.
Yeah,
This is going to be a high turnover thing. Just looking at way the contracts are set up and the way the personnel and the roster is sitting right now,
yeah,
I think there's going to be players that go with Eberflus for sure. So we're going to have some holes, right?
yeah.
So, and I get free agency hasn't happened and it's difficult to project what we're going to need. But at the same time, you kind of have to have an idea of how you want to utilize these picks to optimize the skill that we're going to bring to the team. And it's tough because if you need 5 or 6 players to fill holes, you can't just go out and buy players every year. They just won't
Yeah.
work. So if we have 5 or 6 needs, but we only have 2 impact draft picks, how do we spend them the best? Do you take those 2 picks and get a top 5 player? Do you split the difference and trade both of your picks to get multiple, trade back in the first round to get multiple second round or even a couple third round picks out of it just to have more shots at the board? Do you trade back your first round pick and take 2 early second round picks in the first round? It just depends on what you really want. Do you want a guaranteed impact player? Do you want one good player and an okay player? Or do you want several okay guys?
Man, I think
It's hard to think of it like that, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah, personally, first off, top of my head, no draft boards, no, nothing. I think you have to hold on to the Dallas Cowboy pick, and you have to draft whatever's best available with it. Now the Green Bay one, it can definitely get tricky. I don't want you to reach with that Green Bay one. Let's say there's a guy that, or get something that's like get some let's draft in our offensive lineman with the second one. Unless that offensive lineman fell down the board and he should not be there. And it's like, this guy, how the heck did he fall 10 picks? He was supposed to be drafted top 10 and now he's at 23 or whatever. Then get him. But not saying I want offensive linemen. Please don't draft an offensive lineman. I've seen too much of it. But in this scenario, if someone falls, take them with that Green Bay pick. If not, I'm okay personally. If I know my draft board and let's say I'm like, man, there's a lot of good day 2, day 3 guys that we could really use on, again, early second round pick, which would be like, top 5 second rounds. And then you get like a third rounder with it or something, or you get a 4th rounder with it to help draft that extra depth. I'm all in for it. But that Green Bay one, I think you can be flexible with. The Dallas one, you need to use it on best available at that position. Or don't reach. Do not reach. I know in the past we've been known to reach for guys, and sometimes they've worked out. Tyler Smith, they really kind of made fun of him getting drafted, and yeah, it worked out, right? And I'm okay with reaching. But in this draft in particular, I really think you need to stick to your guns and draft best available, or if you really are feeling it, and this is not, I'm bouncing around with all my ideas here, You could trade up, but I don't think you should. I don't think you should cash both picks for a top 5 pick. I think you should use the one you have for best available, and then that other one, if no one's there and you feel like you're reaching, get an early day 2 pick, and then add a second or third pick with it to kind of get you go through the draft.
One of the things I was thinking was you keep your pick at 13, wherever it ends up. Maybe it'll end up 12 or 10 or 11, hopefully. But that 23rd pick, you could potentially add a little sweetener to that.
Yeah.
I don't know how much bargaining power you're going to get with a 4th or multiple 5th round picks. But you could always trade down with that pick for a team that doesn't have, an immediate high impact need like that, and they're willing to ride a little further back of the pack.
Yeah.
And maybe you get back into the top 15 with it and get multiple impact guys that way with it. Because I really believe that with that 23rd pick, if that's where it stays, you're going to get a second day guy early.
Yeah.
To be honest. So if we could possibly make that pick, I'm okay with not having second day and third day picks if we can get multiple impact guys on day 1.
Okay.
And I'd be willing to trade, some of what we have for 27 towards that, maybe a second round pick, with our first round pick at 23 this year, trade down to get back into the top 15. So then we could end up with like the 10th and the 14th or the 10th and the 13th, 15th, something like that. And you get a couple quality guys, because it's like one of these things. What if like Reese is there at 5?
Yeah.
Do you trade both of your picks to get that kind of a player? These are just some of the things we're going to have to look at and talk about. This is just a little teaser into it. But the rough part, this is the tough part, Bubba, is that we've only got 2 first-round picks to pretty much handle our whole draft for 2026. Yeah. The rest of it is going to have to come from re-signings and free agency.
The good news is,
they got to count.
You know what? Let me ask you this question. Let's say, are you trading your 2 draft picks for a top 5 pick if you have a good free agency or a bad free agency?
That's definitely going to matter.
Yeah.
And that's why and that's why all this, there's a reason why all this stuff is dated and timed out the way it is, and why the earlier you have a plan and what your end result goal is going to be, you can start working on that now. If you can assess what players we have for the staff that we put in place, which is why I say tomorrow, Eberflus, I'm sorry, it did not work out. Great coach, great person. We got to get somebody in here who's going to balance out the team and work hand in hand with the rest of the coaching staff and reflects the offense very, very well. We got to start looking for that now. Start evaluating in-house, put the feelers out for a new head coach or whoever that might be. I have a list of candidates I would love to have. And then you can kind of say, okay, here's the coach. Here's the players we have. Here's the players we know we can use for this because we've seen it in other coaches when they were here in their tenure. And then this is what we really need to be looking for in free agency and or / the draft.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of see where it falls once that happens. And we'll walk all the way through those stages on the podcast with you and I here. But that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And we got to do first things first. And that's assess what we have. But we have to have a direction.
Yeah.
Or we're just going to be doing the same thing again.
Hopefully it doesn't turn out to be one of those things like 2 off seasons ago where Jerry Jones and the coaching staff does not paint the picture for you. They don't do nothing. Like, hopefully as we do this and we go through this, our front office paints the picture of what direction we're going in the draft. Because in my opinion, if you have a successful free agency and you feel that you really got the guys back that you wanted, or you got the depth you needed, or you reached out free agents and got them, I would be totally open to trading your 2 first-round picks for a top 5 pick for your guy, the linebacker of Ohio State, like I would love to do
that was
that.
just an
But
example. Yeah.
if you don't have like a good free agency and you don't go get the guys you need to and you don't get the depth you need to, then you can't make that kind of move. In my opinion, you can't trade both your first round picks for one guy. You have to keep 2 because you need the depth or you need the utility and being able to get 2 different kind of guys in the first round.
So you would rather have a Luafau and an Azaraku than a Quinnen Williams? Because that's the difference between trading that those first round picks for a top 5 player or just taking best position available for what's there talent wise. So those are kind of things we got to think about.
Depending on how this free agency and this re-sign period goes, yeah, I would rather take a Luafau. I mean, but it really depends because if you get the guys, I'm all in for one, and I'm all in for getting that star guy. But it just really depends if Jerry Jones decides to be aggressive. You were aggressive during the trade deadline. Don't stop the momentum. Go get some guys. Don't go get scrubs. Don't go get, guys who are
retreads.
Yeah, retreads. Go sign like the Bobby Wagners of the world. Go get veterans. I'm not scared of older veterans. I'm not scared if the Cowboys were like, hey, we're bringing in, I'm sorry, I'm using Bobby Wagner a lot, but he's just an example that hits the top.
Yeah, you watched him earlier, so it's
So if I see Bobby Wagner walk through our door and I'm like, this guy's had a great 2 years, why not? He's been proven to keep having great success. Or if they're like, Patrick Queen's on the market, Roquan Smith's on the market, and I'm naming linebackers like nobody else. But those are the guys that I'm thinking of that if they were there, you're aggressive and you go get them. Not just because they're not Cowboys and they're not homegrown and they're not, used to that culture. Dude, no one, they won't admit it. Non-Cowboys fans won't admit it. But anyone would take a star on the side of their helmet. And I don't care what anybody says. If Jerry Jones offered them a fair check to have a star on the side of their helmet, they're coming to Dallas. They know what comes with the star. They know the fandom that comes with the star. And they know what kind of level that they can enter with that star on the side of their helmet. The only thing is Jerry feels that it's a very unique thing to have it on the side of your helmet. So he makes sure that he gets the
guy. He knows what he's worth. Right. Yeah.
So,
I like your logic, and I totally get it. For this particular draft, if I had to give up my 2 first-round picks to get a top 5 impact, gonna be a star from day one player, I think that I have to do it.
No matter what?
No matter what. And the reason why I say that is because we're only going to get 2 good players at best. And that's if they all work out. And that never happens. That doesn't always happen is what I'm saying. So we're taking a shot on 2 good players anyway. And then we have no second round or third round picks. So it's not like, there's more to come or anything like that. We only have these 2 draft picks to truly help the team get better for the future, right? If I were to say, we had 2 second-round picks and our third-round pick, and then we had the 2 first-round picks, and one of them struck out, and then, maybe we could fall back on the second rounds and the third-round picks to get a couple more guys that could potentially work out, that would be one thing. But we don't have that luxury. We really don't. We have 2 first-round picks to help the team as much as possible right now. And the way our defense is looking, it's going to be tough to go out and find enough impact players in the free agency to fill some of these gaps. So I would rather solidify position. I mean, I would love to get a second linebacker to match with Overshown. I would love to get another great cornerback to put over there with Bland or Chavon. Yeah. I would love to get a safety that I know was going to perform from day one, no questions asked, just out of sheer talent and experience. Then gamble my whole draft on 2 maybe good players. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of where my mindset's at. I think that's where we're at with the tenure of the team and what it's going to take to get the defense right so that they can help the offense next year. I feel good about next year. I really, really do. I think there was some great lessons learned by our front office. I think Jerry Jones is experiencing life in a different way than he has previously, just to put a rosy tint on that.
Yeah.
And I think the sense of urgency and the sense of uh, taking responsibility on it is actually really, really honest and true from him right now. As much as how we feel about the front office and about Jerry Jones as a GM, I think he really, really does realize that things are going to have to change, and he's going to have to change his way of thinking and his way of running the team in order to make that happen. And it's going to have to happen quickly. And I think I really, truly feel like he sees that right now. So, he doesn't have a lot of time, and he's got to make as much impact as quickly as possible if he wants to see this team get turned around soon.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the way of the game. That's how you play in the NFL. You have to eventually, if you look at really outside of the Chiefs, the most recent Super Bowl champs outside the Chiefs in the past decade, it has been the teams who have been all nothing but aggressive. Look at the Rams in 2021. They traded for Stafford. They got all these guys and they shoved it in there, and they're like, go win us the game. And they won it, even with Odell tearing his ACL in the first half. Like, right. You have to, in life and with everything like this, you have to eventually just say, I'm all in. And if it doesn't work out, then you have to live with it. But trying to build a dynasty or trying to build something, it don't happen. It doesn't happen very often anymore. Look since the 90s Cowboys, how much dynasties have really come around. It was the 90s Cowboys, then the Patriots with Tom Brady, and then the Chiefs for the past 7 years. And so it's not like every team has these dynasties anymore. Everyone's like, they find a way to get the key pieces, realize that they got a lot of potential on their team. Then they get the last little pieces, and then they go all in. It's what the Eagles are doing. That's what the Eagles did last year. Yeah. They got Saquon. They got, they drafted over the years. They're like, okay, we got this, we got that. We got Jalen Carter. We got Jalen Hurts. We got A.J. Brown. And then they almost won once. And then they had a downhill year. And then they got right back into it because they're like, we need Saquon. We have to go get the top running back in the league. Why not? And all of a sudden, they win Super Bowls because that's how they do it. And I think Jerry's learning that. I think you saw it this year. I think at the trade deadline, he could have sat back. He could have kicked his feet up and said, there's no hope. There ain't no reason why I should do this. But he truly believed. Let me do the little, I truly believed, Jerry Jones impression. But that trade Micah Parsons was the way to go for his organization. And it was a way to use those assets to go get other guys. And so far, he's proven it. Yeah. He got Quinnen Williams. I think that was the great first step. He re-signed DeRon Bland. He re-signed Jake Ferguson. I think he's making the right move so far, but continue that momentum. Continue that success that you're having, Jerry.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah, like you said, I fire Eberflus. I'm
Start
like,
tomorrow.
Yeah. If it happens, if it really happens, I'm going to really believe in what Jerry's doing, and here's another thing too is, and I'm kind of reading Twitter off to the side here, so I'm sorry if I'm derailing things, but even they're looking at, starting Tyler Smith at left tackle. So they're looking to make moves. I'm just hoping that from a front office standpoint, Jerry's making the moves he needs to better his team. There's really no point in holding on to Eberflus anymore. You fire him now, you fire him in 2 games. It don't matter. The Cowboys defense isn't just going to change overnight. We have no reason why to keep him here. He was supposed to be here to be that veteran presence, and obviously he was not a veteran presence.
Yeah.
So
100% agree.
But yeah, man.
You can't build an airplane in the sky, and that's kind of what I felt like we were doing this year. And it don't work like that. And I think Jerry learned a big lesson. But I think he found some. I think he went against his own principles this year.
Yeah.
And I think it worked out most favorably. Like, I really think he learned that, hey, this does work and we can do it this way. And I can just go find some guys that are talented and add them to the team and make a difference, and that's good. because that disproves his homegrown theory, because that's not going to work. We don't have the draft picks to be homegrown right now. We have to have immediate impact, but we have to have a direction. We have to have a horizon line, and we can't do that until we know what kind of coach we have. And that's the most important thing to take away from this live podcast is players are players, and that's great. And they're talented, and they're the ones that play. But at the end of the day, we need our Saquon DC.
Yeah.
And you got to do whatever it takes to get that guy.
Yeah. You gotta go get somebody who's willing to go against the grain with you, Jerry, and you need to be comfortable with sitting back and saying, hey, go do y'all's thing.
Yeah. What do you want? And I'll do it. Because, I mean, there's guys out there. There's Al Harris, Kelvin Shepard, Robert Saleh, Navarro Bowman. Navarro Bowman's coming up. I would love to see that. These player coaches, man, they make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, we got Jamil Aday, the Bills. We got Bobby Babich at the Bills. There's Joseph with the Saints. And there's Cooley with the Panthers. I mean, there are guys all around the league who are not currently DCs, but they're having success coaching what they coach on those teams, and they're progressing. Yeah. You know, you match a young guy who's got, you know, a plan and an idea and a methodology and talent with our new head coach, and you can establish something for 3 or 4 years and build on that and have continuity. But it's not going to be Schottenheimer and Eberflus. That's just not that chemistry don't work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
That's all I got.
Yeah, man. I think it was a good hour run here, guys. So, yeah, man, we're about as lost and confused as you are. No, I'm just kidding. We're happy to be doing this, breaking this stuff down, and just like always, man, we appreciate y'all. And if y'all have any players you want us to scout, any players you want us to evaluate, whether it's college or NFL, man, put it in the comments. You want to talk about defensive coordinators that we could look at? Let's break down their schemes, man. Let's do this. We appreciate y'all's support. If you haven't, like, comment, subscribe, join our journey, man. We've been a part of this for the year, and we're excited to keep on going. Until next time, Cowboys game plan.